Don't you know who I am? I'm the Juggernaut, bitch!
Hello fellow YouTube friends, followers, foes and flabbergastas, my name is Mason and it's time for another easy PvE build guide. Today's build of choice is Powered Dragonhunter, specifically a Juggernaut Hammer Dragonhunter. Since Dragonhunter was buffed this patch, I thought it was time to take another look at the Hammer Dragonhunter. It was already a good option before, but now it's actually a pretty viable build for both instance PvE content and open world gameplay. So if you've been looking for a build that allows you to bonk stuff on the head and isn't Spellbreaker, you've come to the right place. So let's dive into the build for instance content first. The most important effect to keep up on this build is Spear of Justice. With the trait Big Game Hunter, we need to maintain the tether from this skill to enemies to gain 25% damage against them. That's why this skill is priority number 1 to maintain. You will usually have a small downtime on this, since the cooldown is 14 seconds with Alacrity, which is longer than the duration of the skill, 12 seconds. If you want an even easier option with lower damage, you can use Heavy Light. This will give you a really good uptime on stability too, which can make a lot of things easier. Now let's dive into the rotation concept. The rotation concept consists of 2 sections where one is just used on the opener. The longbow is just there for the opening burst damage, and afterwards we're going to camp Hammer for massive bonking. In the entirety of the rotation, always use Procession of Blades, Light's Judgment and Dragon's Maw on cooldown to maintain the relic of the Dragonhunter. For the opener you want to start with Hunter's Ward and Spear of Justice. Be careful, Hunter's Ward is easy to cancel, so you cannot move during the cast. Then use Procession of Blades, Symbol of Energy and Dragon's Maw. On Hammer, prioritize your auto attack chain with Symbol of Protection on the final hit. Practice this a little bit on the Golem, it's a good way to train yourself to pay attention to auto attacks. In between, just use Mighty Blow and Banish. Mighty Blow is a leap skill, so be careful not to yeet yourself into danger. The skill Banish is a CC skill that resets Mighty Blow when it hits, so wait until another Mighty Blow is available, use Banish and then another Mighty Blow. Not using these 2 skills is not a large DPS loss, so you can focus on auto attack chains and the other skills first. Now, and that's basically the rotation concept. Do this until whatever you're bonking at is dead. Having Longbow on the secondary weapon bar is great because it is a ranged weapon that also allows you to create burst damage. So prior to engaging combat or whenever combat pauses, you can swap to Longbow and start from the opener again. In case you need to stay on Longbow for longer periods of time, you should try to use Longbow 2, 4 and 5 on cooldown. As I said before, Longbow 5 and Longbow 2 are stationary skills, so you can't move during the cast. Longbow 3 Deflecting Shot is a CC skill, so you can save it for break bars. Speaking of break bars, you have a bunch of CC skills in your kit. There are Banish and Ring of Warding on Hammer, you have Deflecting Shot on Longbow, the Bane Signet, Hunter's Verdict, which is the secondary cast of Spear of Justice, and Light's Judgment, which is one of the trap skills on your utility bar. You can save any of these for whenever you need Defiance bar damage. I'd usually redirect you to the written guide for advice on gear, but this time on Dragonhunter, gear is a little bit special. The reason is that Dragonhunter has 2 competing trait lines, Radiance and Virtues, which give vastly different amounts of critical chance. This is important because in the open world build we will use Radiance, while in the DPS variant we will use Virtues. So the gear choices here are made so that it allows an easy transition between the 2 variants, so that you only have to change trinkets and weapons and not touch the armor and runes, which will save you quite a bit of money. When you have specific questions on the gear, just ask me in the comments. That said, let's dive into the open world build. For open world, as always, it can make sense to make a build more forgiving so that you can sustain on your own. And in order to do so, we will increase general survivability and make sure that you cover essential boons on yourself. Now, Dragonhunter, when you just take the DPS build into open world, you will notice that Dragonhunter, with any weapon that you might use, feels very slow and clunky. The 3 best weapons in Longbow, Hammer and Greatsword all have pretty long cast times, which feel quite horrible to play without quickness. So in this case, I made a few adjustments to make the build click for me. First off, by using Longbow, you don't have to run to every mob. You can just snipe stuff from afar and it will deal good damage as well. And dealing damage is very important on this build because your main sources of healing are Litany of Wrath and Relic of Zagreus. Both of these heal you based on your damage dealt, so you need to keep bonking. The first step to increasing survivability is to swap out Zeal for Radiance. Radiance gives you, as I said before, a lot of critical chance, which in turn allows us to swap out gear for more defensive options. In total, while fighting burning enemies and having resolution up, this gives you 35% critical chance, and covering resolution is pretty easy with those two trait lines. Radiance is also important because of the trait Renewed Justice. Renewed Justice will keep recharging your Spear of Justice, allowing you to put it on every enemy as well as resetting it when you kill adds around bosses to benefit more consistently from the 25% increased damage and vulnerability on every hit. So the pattern in open world roaming is to put Spear of Justice on something, snipe it with a longbow and repeat. For soloing harder content and group gameplay, the frequent stability from heavy light can really make a difference, so I'd recommend running that in those cases. Now, why is the critical chance from Radiance important? Let's face it, playing a build that doesn't cover boons on itself feels horrible. Especially not having quickness drastically changes the way you play a build. So let's make this a boon machine. To do so, change all your trinkets and your weapons to Diviners. And on the weapons you put a Sigil of Force, a Sigil of Rage and 2 Sigils of Celerity, 1 Superior, 1 Major. Unlike other sigils, Celerity sigils stack in different tiers. These 3 sigils, when paired with Feel My Wrath, will allow you to keep quickness up on yourself without any issues. And by putting the 2 Celerity sigils on the longbow, you can keep up quickness on yourself even while camping that. The second important skill when it comes to boons is Save Yourselves. Save Yourselves gives you a whopping 8 boons with a more than 50% uptime when you use it on cooldown. This does transfer conditions from allies to you, but you can cleanse them off quite frequently, so it's not that big of a deal. Since it gives you resistance as well, you can allow movement impairing conditions transferred from allies for a couple of seconds. Since Save Yourselves covers a lot of boons with a more than 50% uptime, we only need to fill the gaps to cover the important ones completely. The required uptime on Fury is given by Feel My Wrath, Hold the Line can give you protection, and using your heal skill Litany of Wrath covers the rest of the uptime on Resolution. You will also cover around 10 stacks of might on yourself with Righteous Instincts and Inspired Virtue, and a decent amount of vulnerability from Sword of Justice and Spear of Justice. So in essence, the only boon that you don't have access to in this build is Alacrity. Now, let's talk about how to deal with incoming conditions and control effects. When it comes to control effects, you have 2 possible sources of stability. Your virtue skill number 3, Shield of Courage, and Heavy Light. Note that Heavy Light reduces your damage against regular mobs quite a bit, so I only recommend using it in boss fights. The trait in Virtues, Indomitable Courage, makes Shield of Courage a stun break with additional stability at a very low damage trade-off. This gives you a very good emergency button that also grants protection upon activation. You can also use Signet of Judgment in your flex spot. This gives you a passive 10% incoming damage reduction and another stun break. When it comes to incoming conditions with Resolution up all the time, they are less of a threat to you compared to most other builds. For frequent condition cleanses, you can use Symbol of Protection on the Hammer auto attack, Symbol of Energy on Longbow and Ring of Warding on Hammer. All of those are light fields that you can use with combo finishers to cleanse conditions off. In order to do so, you can use Hammer and Longbow too, for example. If you want a strong condition cleanse on demand, you can use the trait Absolute Resolve in Virtues. This will make Absolute Resolve so your Virtue skill number 2 cleanse 5 conditions in total, and that also in an area. In summary, I think this build is a great example of what taking a little bit of time to adjust a build to your liking can actually mean. In the process of making this, I went from having a build that I didn't really like, that felt clunky and squishy at the same time, to a build that allows you to pump through most incoming damage and nuke stuff very quickly. And again, I can't emphasize enough how much of an impact boons make in open world. The increased responsiveness from having quickness up can save your life in quite a few situations. Alright, that is it for today. Feel free to like and subscribe for the YouTube algorithm. I hope this video was insightful for you and made you want to try Unga Bunga Dragonhunter. See you next time and happy bonking!